Hey everybody, welcome back to Rehash, a Web3 podcast. I'm your host, Diana Chen, and on this episode, we're speaking with Kat from ethevacuations, a project that's helping fund evacuations from Gaza with ETH. Many of you might know Kat from her previous role as head of product at Zora, but since December of 2023, she has been focusing her efforts and time on providing humanitarian aid to Palestine through crypto rails. In this episode, we talk about some of the unique behaviors and impacts that crypto enables, such as increased speed and ease of international remittances, as well as some of the challenges that crypto introduces. Kat also shares her thoughts on how crypto can be used for international aid more broadly, how she handles tough conversations with friends and colleagues about the crisis that's been going on in Palestine since October of last year, and what she wishes the mainstream knew about crypto beyond meme coins and scams. Kat has raised over $250,000 and helped safely evacuate 40 people through ethevacuations so far, and you can support her by donating directly to the wallet address listed on ethevacuations.xyz, by collecting this episode at pods.media/rehash, by tipping on Farcaster or Zora, or by building ethevacuations into a split for an NFT project that you're managing. All of the links are listed in the show notes below. Kat was nominated by David Phelps and voted onto the podcast by Evan McMullen, Zaji Reyes, Karsten, David Phelps, LDF, Tim Black, and Spencer Graham. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Kat. Kat, thank you so much for joining us today on Rehash.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Diana, and thank you to David for nominating me and for everybody who voted as well.
Yes, you've got a ton of supporters. I want to start out just by getting a little background on you so people can get to know you a little bit better. I know that before you started working on what you're working on now, a lot of people might know you from your Zora days as head of product at Zora. Would you mind starting there and just giving us the TLDR on what made you decide to pivot away from that and start working on what you're working on now with ethevacuations?
Yeah, of course. So I left Zora in December last year. Actually, I'd been to Gaza in June last year and traveled there with a program called Gaza Sky Geek, where I went to go and mentor in product management for the community members for Gaza Sky Geeks. Yeah, after I went, I was like, I definitely need to go back. Zora is the second early stage startup where I was head of product back to back. So I always kind of knew I wanted to take an extended break after I wrapped things up at Zora. Initially planned to be spending Q1 this year in Palestine anyway. And of course, my plans had to change in October. So yeah, I decided to take the break anyway from Zora, after towards the end of the year. And yeah, have just been working full time on Palestine related projects since then. So yeah.
So is the work that you're doing now, would you say, a result of you working in crypto and seeing sort of all the things that crypto rails can enable? Or did you already have an interest in this work before you got into crypto and then those two interests sort of melded?
Yeah, definitely the latter. I've been interested in Palestine, working on Palestine related topics for since before I even worked in tech. Of course, working in crypto, been thinking for a long time about what I could do to actually help in Palestine using crypto. So part of going to Gaza was part of that. I did some workshops on building in crypto, talked a lot about layer twos when I was there with people who were interested. And then, yeah, when the situation happened in October, I was thinking from the very beginning about what I could do to leverage my crypto experience to help with the situation there. And it all just kind of came together at the beginning of this year.
Gotcha. Makes a lot of sense. So tell us how ethevacuations got started.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, as I said, I'd been thinking about how to utilize crypto and leverage my relationships in the crypto space to help with the situation in Gaza from October. And I'd had a whole bunch of ideas, but I think probably the simplest thing in the end was send me your crypto and I will get it to Gaza and I will get it to my people in Gaza. Actually, when the market sort of picked up at the beginning of this year, I cashed out my own crypto to pay for a friend and her family to be able to evacuate from Gaza. Yeah, I just did that personally because, I couldn't really sit with it on my conscience that I had the financial ability to help. And yeah, I kind of figured that there was probably more people who felt like this, who wanted to be able to do something and maybe be able to to do something with crypto to help. We honestly just started like one day I was like, I just posted on my Instagram and I was like, hey, send me your crypto. I'll off-ramp it and send it to my people in Gaza. I went to go and do a workout at the gym and I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to build a website and like launch this properly. So came back and did that the same day. Yeah, just been kind of taking it from there.
That's awesome. When you think back now, so it sounds like it started as like you were in the crypto space. You had all of these friends in the crypto space. They have all of this ETH in their wallet and you were like, just send me, this is like the easiest way, right? Like it's almost easier than getting people to send you fiat in that case. But now looking back or just reflecting on all the work that you've done so far, do you think that there's something special about crypto specifically that actually makes the work you're doing more possible or more effective than if you were going through a traditional, fiat rails?
Oh yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I think there's like few things to reflect on here. One is that maybe this is maybe a traditional sort of like fundraising kind of learning is just that people, it's better to try and fundraise from a niche rather than kind of broad. So like by sort of reducing scope to crypto and in crypto, it kind of gives a bit of a cause for everybody to kind of rally around and get involved in and have like those positive signals like in networks, in a smaller network, but purely from like the infrastructure side as well. I mean, it's like I've had donations from people that I'm assuming are like all over the world, like just having a wallet address and anybody is able to send ETH there, like that wouldn't be possible with like a bank account and dealing with this with fiat. Obviously, like, I'd shared the GoFundMe links prior to launching this project, but it's just like not as like engaging or like interesting maybe for people to donate through those links instead of a project where I can give a bit more like color to the project, talk about it kind of from my perspective. And then also on the other side of it as well is like, there's been lots of really interesting like crypto native fundraising techniques that we've kind of been able to use. So, people have been deploying collections and splitting like the proceeds and rewards with the ethevacuations wallet. Or for example, like people have been collecting degen tips on Farcaster and then sharing like that airdrop with me, or like tipping on Zora as well in Enjoy. So it's been kind of interesting to be able to like tap into this like meme coin moment as well and actually leverage that, because lots of people, they're like, oh, I don't have any ETH myself, but I have these free tips every day. So like I can just tip you, and that means that they can donate without it costing any money for them.
Yeah, 100%. I love the Enjoy tipping on Zora. It's so much fun. It's been a really good way for me to discover new projects on Zora too, and like feel like I'm, helping artists in some way by tipping them. But I'll have to grab the Zora link from you for how people can tip Enjoy to your project and help support that project afterwards, and we'll add that in the show notes. Stefan had a question from Twitter. He said, would this work have been possible without crypto?
I don't think so. Like, as I said, I mean, I think that just having like the wallet address to kind of get people excited about and like being able to talk about the impact that the crypto specific nature of the project was having. Yeah, I don't think that would have been possible with me just like sharing like my IBAN and like my account details and trying to get people to donate there.
Right. Yeah, I can totally see that. And then he had another question too. How have you been able to handle the challenges around off-ramps in particular?
It's kind of interesting because I'm based in Europe, so I don't have maybe as many problems with off-ramping as I think like some of the listeners in the US will. And like the banking system's quite different here. So a lot of like, I think sometimes the problems that happen with crypto are more well documented in crypto. Like we don't have exactly the same problems here. Just to maybe sort of like talk around the topic a little bit instead of going into details on it is like, I'm a white person with a white name in a German bank account, like there's not a lot of like red flags that get thrown up when I'm transacting on my account, like in a way that like friends who have like, like Arab names, or who like have other kinds of residency status in Germany maybe get flagged a bit more often. But maybe kind of like an interesting piece of information is like I've been put in like compliance jail with like crypto specific projects more than I have with like my fiat banking. So I don't know if there's just like maybe a little bit of like a need to overcorrect with crypto at the moment that has made it like not totally frictionless.
Yeah, and I don't know how much you can say about this because I know you said there's some sensitivities with like how the government handles crypto and stuff. So answer as much as you can or not. But Maz just hopped in the chat and she asked, how did you manage to get crypto into fiat if needed to off-ramp to help those in Gaza? Like you said, most of those with certain accounts get flagged.
Yeah, so like I'm focused mostly on like off-ramping to my bank account. So just like using like, exchanges to do that and then sending it on to like usually a family member who's like outside Gaza or like someone who's in Cairo who's like friend or family, because that's where the evacuation registrations to happen.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. How much money, by the way, have you raised total since you've started Youth Evacuations?
Yeah, so it's about $225,000
Wow.
altogether, which is really cool. Yeah, like I really thought that I was maybe going to be able to raise like 20K for like one family. And in the end, we've been able to raise enough for 8 families. Like we've been able to contribute to 8 different family GoFundMes. And I was counting this the other day, is that it's actually 40 people who've been able to register to evacuate Gaza, which is just way more than I thought would happen from this. So yeah,
that's incredible.
Really amazing.
That's incredible. Great work with that. And then for you personally, when you're raising money for a family, are you covering just that border crossing cost, or do you, prepare the family with other things like with housing once they get across the border, or food or clothing or other basic necessities?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a mix. For some families, it's like I'm just completing their GoFundMe. So maybe they've already raised like $10,000 or something, but it's like $60,000 for the GoFundMe, which usually contains like both coordination fees and like some money to help them get set up in Cairo as well. For others, it's just been like covering evacuation costs, like just trying to kind of help where possible. Also, like the main route that I've been sending money is by off-ramping and sending it to family members outside Gaza. However, I have actually been able to send USDT like on the Tron network directly to people who are both in Gaza and Cairo to coordinate those evacuations. So we've actually been able to like use crypto for like that part of it as well. But yeah, I mean, maybe it's like important to say as well as like, there hasn't been so much talked about this, but there's now thousands of Palestinian refugees in Cairo who are traumatized, who have been, like are survivors of this genocide. They cross the border with like no possessions, no money. They're often like using their whole life savings to like contribute to be able to like cross. Yeah, like if you see any fundraisers that are about supporting families beyond the initial evacuation, I would encourage you to donate to them, because it's only like going through the border is only the first step in a very, very long journey that at the moment we don't really know how it ends. So
Yeah, 100%. Maz had another question in the live stream. She asked, what has the reaction been like from the crypto community to support humanitarian aid?
I think like in the beginning, so like back in October, I was like disappointed but not surprised, I think, by the reaction of like lots of people in the crypto space, of just tech in general. But I feel like I have been incredibly lucky to meet really amazing people over the last 6-7 months who've 100% like been in my corner, who've been in my DMs being like, thank you so much for advocating for Palestine. Like I think I'm in this really sweet corner of like Muslim communist degens, people who just like care about other humans, and felt in more community in this part of crypto than I have previously. So yeah, it's been really awesome.
I'm curious, to like how you've handled more sensitive conversations. And I know you said for the most part, your corner of the crypto community has been super supportive, but I'm sure you've also come across family members or friends or other people, colleagues, other people in your network who hold, different views on this. How do you approach those tough conversations? Because they are tough conversations. And at least for me personally, I know that I have, really good friends that I love and respect and care for on both sides, who feel very strongly on both sides of this issue that's been affecting our world since October. And yeah, approaching that conversation, I think is just really challenging. And I think probably a lot of people listening can relate to that as well.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting because, so I've lived in Germany for like 10 years, like over 10 years. So, like I used to navigating both professional and personal conversations that are related to Palestine. But what I will say is that like I've been advocating for Palestine for like my whole adult life. Like I don't have a ton of people who are in my near circles who have a different opinion to me, or like who were critical of like, me advocating for Palestine. I think I've done a pretty good job maybe figuring those people out over the years, which is fine. I think I'm also like at a position in my life where, like it doesn't harm me so much to really advocate for the things that matter to me. And I would say that like by being very clear about my position on Palestine for such a long time, it's only ever brought like good things, good conversations, good people into my life. And yeah, I would just kind of encourage anyone who feels that way to maybe like start living with like a bit more conviction about it and be a bit more open about it. You know, I think it was kind of interesting, like because some of my friends, you know, it's like the first time they'd ever advocated for Palestine, and they were like, oh wow, I've got this person in my DMs who I met at a wedding like 3 years ago, and now they've just decided to tell me like, you know, that I'm a Hamas supporter or something. And they were, you know, they're like, oh, you know, you must be having this as well. And I'm like, actually, I'm not. Yeah, I live like a life that's like very well like aligned with Palestine, both in my personal and professional life.
Compared to most of my friends in Web3, I'm not the most online person. And with how fast things move in this space, it can be really challenging to keep up with the newest projects and what's trending. That's why I love Forage, a community-curated front page for launches shaping on-chain culture. A Forage launch page combines a press release and a commemorative mint into a sleek single page where they garner support in the form of mints. Projects receiving more mints are bumped to the top of the page, which means I can finally stop doom scrolling or worrying about missing an important launch and simply check Forage to stay up to date on what's happening on-chain. And as an added bonus, Forage uses protocol rewards, so supporters receive a referral reward each time someone mints through their referral link. Go to forage.xyz to get started today. For those who maybe don't have as much experience as you do advocating for Palestine, but, you know, have through our world events, it's raised this as, you know, an issue that they've gotten more invested in and more passionate about. Do you have any good pointers for them about how to talk about these issues, how to approach these conversations? Again, you know, like you said, you've been living in Germany for the last 10 plus years. And I think there are probably few places in the world as polarizing, and you have people on, you know, extreme ends of the spectrum as in the US. So you probably don't experience this as much, but a lot of our listeners are based in the US. And at least here, you know, it definitely feels very much like your friend's story that you just told about. They posted something about Palestine for the first time, and then people that they haven't spoken to in years came out of the woodwork. I had a similar personal experience actually back in, I think, 2018 or so. I took a trip to Israel and then also went down into Palestine for just like a day, a really quick trip. And it really did like open my eyes to a lot of things, even just with my short trip there. And I think I just posted something on my Instagram. It was like a very, I thought, neutral post. It was really just like, it was a photo of me from Palestine and something to the effect of like, we need to all learn more, educate ourselves more, do our own research, and, you know, not immediately jump to any conclusions, because it's like, there's a lot more going on. Like maybe we should be looking more at the underdog a little bit more in this case and understanding why certain things have happened, whatever. It was not like a hard stance that I took. I thought maybe it had some undertones of supporting Palestine, but I, like your friend, had friends come out of the woodwork that I haven't spoken to in years. At the time, I was travel blogging, so I had some sort of platform that I was growing. People came at me and were like, you have to be really careful what you say. You have a platform. You know, people like listen to what you say. And some of these people were people that I considered good friends of mine and like were, you know, very aligned, I thought, in all other things. I really didn't know how to approach the conversation because I felt like attacked, first of all, for something that I didn't feel like I did anything wrong. But even in more recent times, like since October, there definitely have been just touchy conversations, and I'm not quite sure how to approach it because I only have my very limited personal experience. I haven't done a ton of education or research on, you know, the history of all of it. I know that there's a lot of nuance and a lot of complexities there. So for people maybe similar to my boat, do you have any pointers for us or any good tips for approaching these tough conversations?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I think like one of the things that's kind of come out of the last like 6 months is that now there's just like, there's so much education out there, right? It's like all you have to do is follow like 1 or 2 Instagram accounts and you can get like these really great like educational materials that are in like good sound bites, or even like how to approach these conversations with people in your life. I mean, also like maybe I'm just going to be like really frank about it here, but like nearly 7 months into a live streamed genocide, we've watched some of the most horrendous crimes against humanity. And like I would really ask people, you still have people in your life support that? Are those the kind of people that you really want to have in your life going forward. There's many people, who have good morals and who care about humans. Surrounding yourself with more of those people is, only a good thing.
I hear you on that. When you think more broadly about using crypto for international aid, humanitarian support, what have you seen as some of the biggest challenges you've seen to raising money for international aid within the crypto community?
So, I think one of the biggest challenges is always trust, right? It's is this a scam? Is this person trustworthy? Is it going where it's supposed to go? And that was always what was so important about some of the early supporters of evacuations who had a platform and were able to vouch for me, and people who'd seen me doing the work prior to actually launching the project. So that's definitely one aspect of it. I'm by no means expert in, international aid at all. I know from speaking with some friends who work at NGOs that crypto's only going to become more and more of an important donation mechanism in the future. So I think that lots of NGOs are starting to explore this kind of as a donation mechanism. But yeah, just thinking about some of the challenges that I've had getting this money to Cairo, and then how quick it is to do with crypto is incredible, right? And really being able to get money to people in crisis zones who have access to an exchange and are able to get real USD for crypto.
Do you find that it's easier for you to off-ramp the crypto to fiat and then send it over as you've been doing for the most part? Or would you say for people who are hoping to receive aid that it would be easier if they also had a crypto account where you could just directly send the crypto to them and have them off-ramp it in, their own ways?
Yeah, I think that sending crypto is always just the easier thing, right? It is so much faster. It's difficult because I don't really want to onboard someone to crypto right now who's in Gaza, right? It still feels like a very scary thing when it's a large amount of money. It's easy to make mistakes. All of the people who are in Gaza have been starved, bombed, terrorized for 6 months. When I text friends there, it's they sometimes they forget what day of the week it is or what's going on. I have to be this brain for them outside of Gaza and help them with this evacuation because they can't rely kind of on themselves right now because they're because they've been going through everything that they've been going through for the last 6 months. So I haven't tried to sort of onboard someone who didn't already have access to crypto. So while I've been prioritizing now sending crypto to people, I've had to use the traditional banking system for a ton of people who didn't know how to use it already.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know you've been involved in other aid projects and volunteer projects over the years, even prior to your time in tech and crypto. Have you started thinking about how you could use crypto to sort of build crypto rails into those projects that you've worked on in the past, or even into new projects like other people raising money for other things? Do you automatically think man, they should really build crypto rails into this? It would make things so much easier. It would help them raise so much more money.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of probably easy ways that crypto can help with certain projects. I think something that always comes up about crypto is that, it's on chain, it's traceable, not everybody wants that information to be public about what they're donating to. And even with evacuations, there was people who wanted to donate privately for their own reasons. That's something I think that you're always going to have challenges with, especially with any kind of activist movement as well, is that a lot of these groups and a lot of these actions do require some privacy that you can't have with blockchain. So yeah.
How do you see us getting over those challenges? Because I agree that I think those are big challenges. A lot of people want to remain anonymous, and in the traditional world, you could donate anonymously in most cases. Have you thought of any solutions to that with crypto?
Not yet. Maybe I'll get some breathing space to think about that when this is all over. So
yeah, for sure. We have someone else in the chat asking, what's been the most challenging part with fundraising for evacuations?
Maybe personally for me, I'm a fairly private person. I've had to put a lot more of myself and dox a lot more of myself on the internet than I'm comfortable with in order to kind of build that social proof and trust for people to give me their money, basically. I think on the technical like, well, on the money side of things, it's just like everybody's very nervous about moving this amount of money, whether it's going to get flagged by my bank or the recipient's bank, or like, is there going to be tax implications? There's just like a lot of like questions that people have, and like thrown right into doing like a bunch of research about like the tax implications of sending money I'm not related to and all of this stuff for like different countries to try and help people out. So that's probably been one of the biggest questions. And again, for crypto makes things a little bit easier for everybody.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. What do you wish, I guess, that the mainstream knew about crypto and the impact it can have on the world? Because this whole conversation, I think when most people think about crypto who aren't already in the crypto space, they think of most of the degen things. They think about meme coins and they think about scams and all of these things. But as we've talked about in this conversation, crypto can be used for good, and it can help us help other people in ways that weren't possible before with fiat, or in a much more expedited way than we could with fiat. So what would be like the thing that you would want to tell mainstream people who aren't already in crypto about what crypto can enable?
Yeah, I mean, I think like when I speak to people who are outside of crypto about evacuations, and they're just like, holy shit, that's so much money. Right. And that's like like maybe working in crypto, we get like a little bit like desensitized to ETH price, or like how much like USD is like behind ETH. And like, I definitely had it at Zora, right? Where it's like you would see like, someone making 20 ETH off of like a meme mint, right? And you're just like the kind of like money that is kind of available, and like the ways that we can be creative about the distribution of that money, like that can serve like a really good purpose. As I said, with like the tipping mechanism, with the splits on like the protocol rewards, there are ways in which like we can take no money and make it into money for good causes. And I think that's like I was like trying to explain like tipping on Farcaster to my friend on the way back from the protest on Saturday. And it was just like, I still just don't really know how to explain that to someone who's outside of the space. But yeah, I wish we had a better narrative about that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, I haven't had to explain, tipping on Farcaster or Zora to anyone outside of crypto yet. But now that I think about it, I don't really know how I would go about explaining that either. So maybe I should work on that and figure out the narrative. Even some of my friends in crypto are like, what is this? What is this like enjoy thing that's going on? Like, what is this? Yeah, even people in crypto have a hard time keeping up. So how can people help if they want to help, the cause in general? You mentioned some ideas that are really good. For example, like tipping with Enjoy on Zora or tipping on Farcaster. I like what you just said about building like splits in. So somebody could, like an artist, for example, who is selling their artwork on Zora, they could build in a split with the ETH evacuations wallet address so that a percentage of proceeds automatically go to ETH evacuations. Which that is just like another, I think, super cool thing that crypto enables, is like that immediacy of like, I don't have to be like, oh yeah, I promise I'm going to donate 10% of all proceeds to this charity. And then I have to like actually do the math, figure out how much I make, and then wait until all of it is over to then donate it to whatever charity and then show receipts, whatever. Like this is just so instantaneous and so hands off from the creator or the seller perspective that really there's like no excuse not to just build in a split, even a really small percentage. Like you can build in a 5% split and you're not missing out on much as a creator. Like oftentimes you would be paying that to use a platform for like the platform fee anyway. So you might as well build in a split and have it go to ETH evacuations or a charity of your choice. So do you have any other ideas, like creative ideas for people of how they can help just outside of like straight up sending money to the wallet?
Yeah, like there's been some art, like this is maybe like a really cool thing as well about crypto. It's just, there's been a couple of artists who've created collections and set the split already. And like, it's so cool because they have written to me about it, but like it's obviously completely permissionless, and it's just like, okay, I'm going to do this, and that's really awesome. What I'm always looking for is large donors. So if you have anyone in your network who might be interested, please show me to them. I'm also happy to like chat with them in DMs or whatever if they want to get more information. But yeah, just in general, like appreciate everybody who kind of sponsored me, talked about me as like being a legitimate person in the space. And actually that's been like the most impactful. I've actually had like way more donations and much larger donations come in like once people have kind of promoted me to their network and said that I'm a real person who's doing good things.
Well, hopefully this podcast helps, that people get to hear your story, people get to see your face and, hear what you're working on. So hopefully that helps. And where can people outside of ethevacuations.xyz, is that the best place for people to go to get all the information they need? Or is there anywhere else that you would direct people to?
Yep, ethevacuations.xyz, and I will share like my Farcaster so that you can tip there, and some of the Zora if you want to like tip enjoy. I'm trying to keep all the information on that site so I can share it with everyone.
Perfect. And just to remind people too, we always build in a 25% split with all of our guests when you collect this episode as an NFT at pods.media/rehash. So we'll build you in to that split, Kat. And if you listen to this episode and you enjoyed it, and you want to support Kat and what she's working on, definitely collect this. And we have 25% of all proceeds automatically going to Kat. So make sure you do that after as another way of supporting Kat and the work that she's doing. A sort of fun thing that we're doing this episode with every guest as we wrap up is I'm asking every guest to give me their can you not. So basically a pet peeve of theirs or something that they see people doing all the time that they just wish people would stop. So do you have a can you not for us today?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like mine might be like kind of, like, I'm just like, can you not support genocide? That's like my, and I'm like,
I mean,
at the moment.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one. That is, I think that's a good mic drop one. Can you not support genocide? No, honestly, like it shouldn't be a taboo topic. We should be able to speak freely about it. So I really appreciate your openness and your frankness. Can we not support genocide? That is a good one to end on. We'll end on that one. Last thing, tell people where they can find you personally if they want to follow you, if they want to get in touch with you. What's the best way?
Yes, I'm on Twitter, Catalunya030. I'm also on Farcaster as Catalunya, and those are probably the best ways to reach me.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the pod today, Kat, and sharing your story and sharing about such an important cause that you're doing. We'll be sure to link everything in the show notes below. So if you want to support Kat, support ETH Evacuations, make sure you check out the links in the show notes. It'll take you right there. Hopefully, I really hope this episode some way helps give you some donations or just helps give people more ideas about how they can support and easy ways that they're already doing, like building in splits. Would really encourage everyone to do that. Thanks again so much, Kat. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into the live stream and for all of your questions for Kat. And we will be back again next Thursday with another episode of Rehash. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Rehash. Rehash is hosted, produced, and edited by me, Diana Chen. Rehash is also supported by our community of NFT holders who curate our guest lineup each season. To get involved, head over to our website at rehashweb3.xyz and collect this episode as an NFT. Anyone who collects an episode becomes part of the Rehash community and will be able to nominate guests for future seasons. To learn more about how to become a guest on the podcast, go to rehashweb3.xyz/podcast. And to learn more about sponsoring the podcast, go to rehashweb3.xyz/sponsor. Finally, be sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at rehashweb3 or on Warpcast and Lens at Rehash, and join our community on Telegram at t.me/rehashweb3. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.